Hey everyone, welcome back to the REI Marketing Secrets Podcast. Today on the show, we have Brandon Cobb. And Brandon, for our audience out there who's just learning about yourself for the very first time, do you mind going into your background a little bit and how you got started in real estate?
Sure. Well, first off, I just want to say, Trevor, it's an honor to come on the show. I appreciate you having me on. This is going to be a lot of fun. I don't have your typical background. I feel like a lot of these shows people hop on and they've got, some story how they worked in corporate America for 30 years. They got fed up and there was this like dream to be an entrepreneur, right? And that dream finally gets realized. That wasn't me, man. I was one of those kids. I grew up, all I wanted to do was make my parents proud. And so I followed in their footsteps. I was by the book. I did everything my parents told me that I should, all the way up through, probably mature adulthood. I got a fancy, very cozy corporate job working for a medical device sales company. So I did sports medicine products, a lot of ACL tears, rotator cuff tears, that kind of stuff. I got a 401k. I got the company car. I mean, I was making great money in my mid 20s. I had everything. I did everything that I was supposed to do. And I did not have this desire to go out and start a business. I loved what I did. Being in medical device sales, I felt like the coolest kid on the block, like getting to wear scrubs every single day. Like, you're sending pictures of your buddies in the OR room, like, oh, look at me. Like, everybody thought I had a cool job. I was rubbing shoulders with very successful orthopedic surgeons every single day. And most importantly for me, I was in a job where I felt like I was making a difference. I was very intrinsically motivated. I could tell there was a difference between someone who walked in, used my product and implant, and had a better life afterwards. So I was very fulfilled from a just internal perspective. And I grew up in a family where I was taught to save my money. Don't spend anything. I remember when the iPhone first came out, my first thought was 99-cent apps that can change your life. Oh my God, I was so excited to go and start purchasing these 99-cent apps. And my dad, this computer engineer, very hard man's man, like, you don't need that, save your money, don't spend it. And mom was a Catholic school teacher, like, hey, listen to your dad, respect your dad. And so I grew up doing everything that I was told to do. And then one Friday afternoon, about 4:50 p.m., I was having the best day of my life as a med rep. I mean, it was an awesome day. Just everything was going right. Surgeries were going well. Capital trials were going amazing. I sit down at the Starbucks and was having a conversation with my boss. And before I could tell him about this amazing day that I was having, he tells me the words, Brandon, we no longer think that you're a fit for us. We're going to have to let you go. And this was a man who I respected, I looked up to. He was like a second father figure to me. I told him multiple times, like, I want to be, you when I grow up. Like, I want to, take your job and, just everything I can to help propel you to where you want to go in life. I just loved and respected this man's opinion. And hearing that from somebody who was like a father figure to me for so many years, it really made me feel like I was abandoned. And so that was when I learned that I was jobless that day. And I'll never forget the lesson that I learned from it. It was that nobody was going to look out for my financial well-being but me. At the end of the day, you've got these corporations have to do whatever's best for them. And I was a number, and I, for whatever reason, was no longer a fit for them. And so I realized that I needed to put and take life matters into my own hands and start building something where I was going to be able to take care of myself. But when you lose your job like that, and many people do lose their job, it goes so much deeper. It wasn't just losing a job. When you are living your dream job, when you've worked for years and years to break into a certain industry, and that's like what you want to do for the rest of your life, which is what medical device sales was for me. I wasn't just losing a job. I was losing my identity. I had my identity wrapped up in that job and how I saw myself and how other people saw me. And so it was a very, very depressing time for me. I struggled a lot. I said, okay, well, let me go and try to do something on my own. I started a course on how to break into medical device sales. That flopped, complete failure. I thought I wanted to be the next Tony Robbins. And so I was like trying this life coaching business out. And, who'd have think that a 26-year-old man wouldn't get any clients for life coaching, right? I mean, who would have thought that failed? And then I was trying to create an online motivational blog as well, and that failed. And it really wasn't until I discovered this amazing vehicle called real estate that things really started to take off for me. I started, my first flip that I ever did, literally sold all my retirement accounts, cashed everything in, bought it cash, drove an hour and a half every single day. I don't know which way to swing a hammer at this point in time. I mean, I'm not joking. Like, if you told me to go into Home Depot and find the glass stretcher, I would have looked for hours and not been able to find it. That was my knowledge. But that was when things really started to take off. And, we started building that business up, started getting into development, started working with the local planning commissions in and around the city to help bring the vision to life. For 8 years, we just kept pouring back into the business, back into the business, back into the business. And I'm blessed to say that it's helped me build a life that I'm really proud of. Today, we focus on entry-level housing communities. So that's another way of saying that is like first-time homebuyer housing. I don't like to use the word affordable because people get it misconstrued with like Section 8 or government housing. That's not what we do. We're trying to put first-time home buyers in their first home. And, we've got somewhere around 650 units that are currently in the pipeline at various stages of development. It's a great asset class to be in. And, since going on this journey and investing in real estate the past 7-8 years, I've been able to build a life where I get to go on family trips every single year. Like, I do an annual mom-son trip with my mom, who's a history teacher. We always go somewhere historic as the theme. I've been able to take my dad on trips that he's never been able to go and afford himself. And I get to do these annual sibling trips every single year with my brother and sister, going somewhere that's like on their bucket list. And so I travel about 6 weeks a year with friends and family and my wife. And it's just given me so much fulfillment. I tell this to you because I don't want you to go on a 10, 15, 20-year journey down corporate America, spend decades of your life climbing a ladder to just get knocked right back down to the bottom and not have a plan B in place. So now I'm on a mission to help more people realize and experience this amazing tool called real estate that can really create the life that you want to build.
Yeah, I think there's a lot to unpack there. There's a lot going on, and it's funny. Back in my day, it was probably 2015. Now I started like a motivational blog, thought about becoming a life coach, and I was still in college at the time, and poured my heart into that for 2 years, and wondered why I never made any money doing it. And it's like, now looking back, who's going to take life advice from a 20-year-old that's still
Yeah.
still in college? At the time, it seemed like a good idea, but looking back, I'm like, yeah, I wouldn't have hired myself. I wouldn't have hired myself either. But I'm curious, when you have all these different asset classes out there, what really gravitated you towards like more that first time home buyer asset class compared to, say, a lot of people do multifamily or self storage, mobile home park. What was it about this asset class that you liked more so than, or chose this asset class over those other asset classes?
Yeah, so it's what I love about it is it's really the land, right? That's where we focus. And it just so happens that the main product that we put on that land is first-time home buyer housing. And so there's a few key reasons. I won't go into all of them, but number one is when it comes to first-time home buyer housing, and when I say that, I'm talking about that like $2,500 per month mortgage, because that's about the average price of what a family can afford in the United States now. There's a huge supply and demand imbalance. Everyone's talking about the affordable housing crisis, how we're 5-6 million homes short, depending on who you talk to. And if you look at the inventory coming online, you have 33% of the home buying population. Those are millennials. Those are first time home buyers. There's this wave of millennials that are now ready to settle down, have families. They're having kids. They want to buy their first home, but less than 10% of the homes being built are at a price range they can afford. That's a huge supply and demand imbalance, which presents a huge opportunity. So that's the number one reason. The second is because we're all about capital preservation, right? Doesn't matter what returns are or what the deal looks like. If it could potentially go to zero for some reason, I don't want to be in it. This is why I'm not a fan of picking individual stocks, because literally 100% of businesses go out of business at some point in time, right? You could have made tens of millions of dollars being in the beginning of Blockbuster, but if you didn't sell at the right time, then you would have just gone bankrupt and lost everything. So I want to be in something that's going to always have value, and people always need a place to live, and people are always going to need that affordable house. But it's very difficult to deliver this type of product to the market, which is where we execute our strategy and our value add plan. And that is, we identify parcels of land that are not the highest and best use, and we work with the city to bring it to life. We want to create the vision that the community wants. And so a lot of times we're pulling a chair up on the same side of the table with the city, sitting down with the mayor, talking with them, saying, hey, what's missing in the community? What are the citizens complaining about? How can we add value? What can we bring to the table here? And there's so much equity. And when I say the word equity, there's so much of a safety moat you can build into your deals when you take a piece of farmland and you turn it into a single family community. That's it. Farmland to single family community. That's what we do in a nutshell. And so we don't buy these assets until we have force appreciated it through that rezone or entitlement process. So we take a farm that might be worth $300,000 or $400,000, we put it under contract, and once it's worth, $2 million, $3 million, $4 million, after we've put 100, 200, 400 homes on it, that's when we buy it. And so I love buying deals where we can force appreciate the product and then buy it afterwards. So it's like fixing up a house and flipping it, except buying it after it's fixed up and all the equity's in it. Or it's like buying a multifamily unit after it's fixed up and the rents are stabilized and all the value's there. So I like to be in assets where we have control over the value of it. And it's an asset that there's a long runway for. In other words, we know that entry-level housing is going to be around a long time.
Yeah, I really like that concept, and I think of like around me, like typically any new house they're building, you're looking at maybe 750,000 and up, and I would imagine that that's not going to hit the $2,500 a month if you're just looking at mortgage, and it's just not even including property taxes or my local area. We got a school tax that, our school tax is like $500 a month we have to pay, so that'll add up quickly. But when you're going out there and building these new houses, I would imagine there's some sort of game plan that you have? Is it something standard like each new house that you're going to build, it's going to be, say, 1,600 square feet, 3 bedrooms, 2 baths? Or is it dependent on what they're looking for in the given area?
Yeah, so we've got multiple exit strategies, and everything is all predicated on, our national home builders building in that area. The D.R. Hortons, the Lennars, the people who are building these entry level housings, because in a lot of ways they're our customers. So yes, we do build and sell the houses, but we also develop the land and sell the land to these other builders. So we've got three different exit strategies. Number one is we will take the land through the entitlement process, rezone it, whatever we need to get the stamp approval from the city and the state. And once that happens, we do one of three things. Number one is we can just sell it off to another developer right then and there. We're doing that with a large home development right now. Like there's stuff that's too big for us that we're just not going to do. We don't have enough money. We don't have manpower. I'm not going to go build 1,000 homes. We'll just sell that off to another developer. Exit strategy number two is we will actually develop the land and we will sell the improved lots to a builder. So this is putting the roads into the ground. This is the utilities, the water, sewer, the electrical, everything that it needs to start building a home. And the cool thing about that strategy is they're all pre-sold. And so we've got an end buyer lined up that's going to buy everything that we develop. That's exit strategy number two. Exit strategy number three is we develop and we also build and sell the houses. Those are our three different exit strategies.
Yeah, I like that a lot. I feel like that gives you a lot of options, especially if you find, like you mentioned, you can build 1,000 houses on. You're like, I don't really want to do that, but I'll maybe
Yeah.
take the land. I'll make it a little bit easier for a developer to come in, maybe a bigger company that they can come in, but we're still making that margin there. And then maybe we have a smaller parcel of land. Maybe we have like, I don't know, say 20, 40, 50 acres, and we're going to put 50 houses on it. Then we can just go out and sell those on our own. So I like those different strategies. When it comes to the markets for these, when you're looking for the land, are there certain geographical areas of the country? Is it more, say Sunbelt states? Is it more in the Midwest? Or is it sort of all over the country depending on if it's a good deal or not?
Everything we do is in Nashville, Tennessee. That's where our boots on the ground are. We manage every single project. Everything we do with our investor base and our partners is in an area where our hands are touching it. So we've got in-house people that actually go meet with the city. I mean, I even go and we'll meet with the city, and I'll do the big reveals for like a new neighborhood that we're inventing. I'll release that to the community. Like, that's fun to me. Like, I enjoy doing stuff like that. So there's a lot that goes into it. We're only in Nashville, Tennessee. We like Nashville, Tennessee for a variety of reasons. It's not the best market out there, right? But a couple things we look for. Number one is we want to make sure money is flowing into an area, and right, you can apply this strategy to any city or any market that you want. I call it the follow the money strategy. The reason we like Nashville is there's four types of money that are moving into Nashville by the loads, and those are institutional, those are large corporations, those are small businesses, and those are consumers. The reason we want to see those four different types of money revenue pouring into a city is because of insulation. In the event that you get these economic events like, interest rates going up, or an 0809 crisis, certain areas are going to perform better and certain areas are going to perform worse. And your number one indicator of how well an area is going to do is how much money is going into it. Because if, like in COVID, for example, didn't matter what the economy did. If you were invested in toilet paper and Zoom technology, you were fine. Like, you were not going to get hit at all. Like, you were fine in that. So money doesn't disappear. It just finds a different home to invest in. And so we want to be in the areas where there's large corporations moving in, there's institutional money, there's small businesses, and their consumers. Nashville has been one of the top 10 fastest growing cities in the United States the past 6-7 years, which means people are moving there, which means money are moving there. You can go pick up a copy of the Nashville Business Journal. Amazon just built a 5,000 person C-suite exec skyscraper downtown, all because they're moving jobs to this area. Jobs move here, people move here, and therefore money moves here. If you go look you can go Google a cool image called Nashville skyline before and after, and it'll show you the amount of like skyscrapers that were there before and after. I think it was 2010 to like 2020, and the skyline's literally doubled. That tells you that there's institutional money that's moving into this area, which is where you want to be. And then also, if you look at hotel prices are a great indicator of how much institutional money is moving into an area because they invest in hotels. And right now, Nashville has some of the highest hotel costs in the nation, and there's about 30 some odd hotels slated to go up just because of the supply and demand imbalance. We've got year-round tourism because we're country music capital of the world. Year-round, it's not cyclical. And then yeah, there's tons of stuff moving here. That's why we like Nashville.
Yeah, what I like about that is I find that a lot of investors, they just pretty much go all over the country. Maybe they start in one market, then they hop to the next market, and then to another market. Not saying that's not a good strategy, but it sounds like for you, you got boots on the ground there. You know the area. You can see what's developing. You have that sort of expertise versus some of these other investors, where it kind of scares me sometimes when they're popping up in a new market all the time. And I'm like, how much do you know about that market? So I like that aspect of your company, especially just Nashville. I know you listed off those statistics. I would imagine Nashville is a hot market. It seems like a lot of people are moving there. Probably a lot of people from my state of New York are probably moving out of here and
Yeah.
moving down there, given, just looking at the maps and different things like that. But I really like that. And I think that's really good, just being in that one specific market. And when it comes to the deals themselves that you're putting together, whether it's going out there and just improving the land, whether it's improving the land and then putting the houses on it and then rebuying them, what does this sort of investment returns look like? Is it more of like an equity play where it's low cash flow in the beginning, where maybe you don't get any cash flow for the first year or two, or maybe you get 2 or 3%, but then you get a ton of equity when you go to sell it, say however many years down the road? Curious what that looks like for a potential investor.
Yeah, so there's definitely some nuances with what we do versus like the the multifamily, commercial world where it's more like a buy and hold long-term play. We're typically in and out in 2 years or less. And
Hmm.
some of the stuff is like a year. So it definitely plays into our strategy. We like to be able to turn people's money, and there's always another opportunity, but it gives people the flexibility. If you can't afford to have your capital locked up for 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years, then might be a good option. And we usually weigh towards a healthy preferred return. So we do two types of deals with our investors. We do debt deals and we do equity deals. On the equity deals, typically we're doing 50% equity and 50% debt. So very, very low leverage on the debt portion of it. We want to keep it that way. And if it's a deal where we might raise 100% of the funds from investors to do that project, then we usually aim for 12 to 14% annualized. If it's an equity deal where they're going to be in second position behind the debt, usually we aim for an 18% preferred return. And so the way we have things structured with our investors is, look, I'm just a simple country boy from Tennessee. We do a 100% split with the investors where 100% of the proceeds go to them until they get their return on investment back, their preferred return, and their original principal. So they got all their money, they're paid out of the deal, and then our firm will profit on the remaining units that are left in that deal. And it works the same thing on the debt side as it does the equity side. We keep it very simple. I can tell you that we really like this structure. We pay more for it by eliminating a lot of the debt risk when we own it outright with our investor partners. And we do like that strategy. We had to do that a lot more when the debt markets dried up after the banking crisis, after interest rates went up. I'll give you an example. We bought a 75 home development in September of 2022. Worst possible time to buy something. Absolute worst. But everybody was freaking out because interest rates had just gone up higher than they ever had in history. Because we bought that with our investors and we owned it outright with our investors, we could afford to hold on to that. We did not have monthly interest payments that were due. And so we waited for a year and a half, market bounced back, and we're now developing these 75 lots. We're going to be done. It's going to be sold in November. Because we structured that deal right there, we weren't put under any pressure. If you can figure out how to eliminate the debt risk, which is what we do on some of our developments completely by just owning it outright with your investor base, you have eliminated almost all possibility of having a capital loss, because you're never going to see that property turned over to the bank, who might call the note due because there's a banking crisis or because the project sat too long because there's no buyers, right? So we really try to do everything we can to eliminate all possible risks, even if it costs us more money as a general partner, even if we're making less. And so the way we structure our deals is, there's no cash flow until things start selling. So we do a healthy pref for that reason. And, we can't offer tax benefits because it's not a long-term hold. We're not doing a cost seg and then, a year or two later having to redo it.
Yeah, I think that's very good, especially the no capital, not losing capital. I mean, that's always the big thing. I mean, at the end of the day, I've seen a lot of folks, specifically just in the multifamily space, and you feel for these people and these different operators out there where they just got hit with the interest rates rising and people invested hundreds of thousands of dollars. And now it's this one gentleman I saw, he put in like 100,000 into a deal and he got his return of principal was like $1,500 all said and done. I mean, where you're talking 98% loss of capital. I mean, that's like the biggest thing for me as an investor is making sure, like, how can I protect my money in the event that something does go wrong? And usually a lot of the time, like you mentioned, it goes back to that leverage. If the bank owns a piece of it, then can the bank foreclose on it, the bank take it back? But if we own it 100% outright, yeah, maybe we're not making as good of a return. Maybe we're taking a little bit of a haircut, but at least we're protecting ourselves on the back end. So I really like that aspect of it. I think it's the way going forward, at least for me, when I'm looking at these different deals. I mean, right now, I still see people pumping out 80% LTV, and that scares me. I'd rather be a little bit lower than that. I mean, I understand some people, you definitely makes sense to use leverage here and there. But yeah, that definitely scares me. But let's say someone is listening to this podcast and they're like, I love what Brandon's saying. Like, I'm super interested in what he has to say. And then let's just say they book a call with you or your company. They end up investing with you. What does it look like from there on out? Do you guys do monthly reports? Do you do quarterly reports? Like, what could the expectation someone have once they were to invest that capital with you?
Yeah. So step one is they get put into our onboarding program, and there's a series of things that happen. So number one is they get an introductory email, thanking them for the opportunity, reaffirming like, look, you made a great decision and like, here's why we look forward to working with you. Step two is they're going to get access to our investor portal. This is where they're going to be able to access all their documents, get real-time updates, and basically see a history of all communication from that standpoint on. The third step is they're going to get access to our monthly updates added to their email. So, they can log onto the portal and check those out, but they're also going to get them added to the monthly emails. They'll actually see some of the past reports too, so they can familiarize themselves with them. We send out monthly updates. If things are going well, it basically stays the same. If things aren't going well, if for some reason you got like an interest rate environment, your buyers flock to the sidelines, right? With our investor base back in 2022 in September, our communication increased. We let them know we were doing updates every 2 weeks until we had kind of gotten past what had happened there, and explained, because they were asking like, well, what happened to all the buyers, Brent? Y'all had 4 contracts in on this piece of land. We're all excited about it. We bought it. What happened to them? Well, interest rates went up, and so we're going to hang on to it. Luckily, we're not in a distressed situation. We can afford to hang on to it. You own the land with us, and so we're going to just ride this thing out. So in the event that something does go not according to plan, our communication will increase at that point. And then, unlike a lot of huge firms that you get an investor relations rep, we take the time to build relationships with every single investor in our organization. That's me specifically, and that's my job. So a lot of times we're trying to differentiate where others aren't. I've got my money parked in a bunch of other people's syndications. Like, I invest in multifamily, I invest in that stuff. I want to diversify because I've got so much of my own money in our own projects, and I see where the gaps are, and the gaps are around communication, right? 24 hours to get an answer back to people, or an email, or you're communicating with an account rep that doesn't have all the answers, right? And he's got to go and ask somebody else, the real sponsor of the deal. You don't get any of that. You get my direct phone number 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, anytime you got a question, and I'm, pretty spot on. So you don't have to wait for answers. That's like a little bit. There's a lot more steps that we do in our customer experience journey for our investors that, we want. We've got surprises baked in there, but I'll kind of leave it at that.
Yeah, that's perfect. And the communication aspect is key. At least for me, I know, like, if I'm investing in a deal and maybe something's off, maybe something's delayed, maybe just something, whatever's going on with the deal, as long as you communicate with me, I'd rather know firsthand. Where I've seen deals with operators where, let's say, I'm going to give you a distribution, let's say September 1st. September 1st comes around and there's no distribution. And obviously, people are they're going to be pretty mad at you, and then they're going to be wondering why. Well, at least if you could have got ahead of that. And I've seen this before on this one particular deal, and it was like, I'll give you the distribution in 2 weeks. 2 weeks goes by, so nothing. Another problem comes up, and then a week out, we're going to give you another distribution. It's like, how are people going to expect to want to invest with you in the future? And then I think you hit it spot on when I'm talking to these different operators. Sometimes I'm talking to the IR people, the investor relations people, and even if the company seems very successful and that's the first person I'm talking to, and I don't either believe what they have to say, or I'm like, I don't know if they know what they're going to be talking about or know what they're talking about. Then I'm like, I don't want to put my money with this company just based on who I'm talking to from their company. So I think that's excellent that someone can get that direct line of communication with you, be able to get in contact with you. Where I find a lot of sponsors, it's just a weakness of them is the communication aspect of it. And then it's who they bring onto their team to really talk to folks like myself and our audience who are going to be those passive investors out there. But speaking of these passive investors, let's say someone's looking to get into their first real estate deal. What's the best piece of advice that you want to give them?
Oh man, if you're trying to get into your first real estate deal as a passive investor, make sure you know what questions to ask. That don't go into this green, go read books, go speak to somebody who's made these investments before. You don't want to be a pioneer. You don't want to figure this out as you go, because it could cost you 100% of your capital. In fact, I remember I had one of our investors call us one time, and he said, "Hey, Brandon, my friend lost all his money in a real estate deal out in California. Can you talk to him?" And it became very evident when I was speaking to this man on the phone that, one, he was just green. He did not know the paperwork to properly secure his money wasn't there. He didn't know how to do the due diligence on the operator. He didn't know how to do the due diligence on the deal. And because of that, he lost all his money. I actually put together this short ebook called 100 Questions Business Owners Ask Before They Invest, because I wanted to prevent that from happening to just one more person. And so you can actually go to our website. It's completely free. You can go to hbgcapital.net and you can grab that free ebook. Learn to ask the right questions. If you, the right questions are the key that unlock the answers you need to make more informed investment decisions. And so the more educated you are before jumping in, that that is going to prevent a capital loss, which is the number one goal that you want, especially on your first investment. Because if you screw up the first one, chances are it's going to taint your view of real estate investing forever. We make financial decisions based on our life experiences. And so you'll know, like, people that, grew up during the Depression, like, those are some savers, man. Like, my wife's grandma, she was saving like almonds. She'd have like one almond left after a bag of almonds and go save it. Like, that affects you. And so you don't want to ruin your perception of real estate investing by making a bad first investment. So educate yourself.
Yeah, that's spot on. And that was the biggest thing for me was talking to different sponsors, talking to people that had invested. And I learned early on before I made any investments that when you're reviewing these deals, a lot of the time sponsors they can tweak numbers depending on what they're looking for. Maybe the capex is a little bit lower. Maybe the vacancy is a little bit. Maybe the vacancy is instead of being at, or let's say 90% occupied, they put it at 95% occupied, so the numbers look a little bit better. But
Yeah.
are those numbers actually achievable? And I think that just comes with the more experience you have, the more people you talk to, the more deals that you look at. Because like you mentioned, I know if it was me and I was starting off as a passive investor, and I put into my, let's say, put 100K into a deal, and 2 years later I have $0. I don't, I don't want to invest in another deal again. I'd be very scared and hesitant to do that. But that's why you do that due diligence up front. That's why you talk to different sponsors, operators, and you take that time to really understand like what you're investing in, because it's not like the stock market where you put the money in and then you're like, oh, it's not going so well. Let me pull my money out. It's very illiquid to say the least. I mean, you can, to a certain degree, you can pull your money out, but then you're going to take a haircut on it, whether, depending on what people are looking to do, maybe they'll buy the shares off you at 80 cents on the dollar, 90 cents on the dollar, or maybe 70 cents on the dollar. No matter what it's going to be, if people are going to be buying out your shares, it's going to, you're going to be losing some money on the deal, and that's probably not what you want to be doing. But,
Yeah.
Brandon, I wanted to say I really enjoyed our interview today. And for the folks out there that are looking to learn more about yourself or your company, where should they go to?
Yeah. So if you're somebody who is wanting to diversify your portfolio into land that's slated for entry level housing communities, first time home buyers, if you're somebody who's trying to build a legacy and you're trying to make an impact with loved ones by creating passive income from real estate, go to our website, hbgcapital.net. That's pronounced Harry, Bob, Gary, capital.net. I joked that someone stole the .com, so it is .net. But, we've got a ton of free resources on our website. I already named the ebook, 100 Questions Business Owners Ask Before Investing. You can grab that on our website. But we've also got our own podcast called Recession Resistant Real Estate Radio. You can check us out there as well.
Awesome. I'll make sure to include that all in the show notes. And Brandon, thanks so much for coming on to the show today.
Hey, thanks, man. It's been a pleasure.